This is for the Algebra 1 class, Chapter 1, Section 6. It's a review of Rn.3, multiplying and dividing real numbers. Here is a brief overview of the multiplication and division rules. I'm going to point out a few things. Looking at this, you can see that whenever the sign is the same, it's positive. Two positives make a positive, two negatives make a positive. Whether you're multiplying or dividing, when the sign is the same, it's a positive. When the signs are different, it's a negative. Whether you're multiplying or dividing, the signs are different. The final answer, your solution, is negative. This may be the first entry in your notes. So write each of these problems under number 1 in your note page, and you want to leave about 3 lines between problems. We're going to go ahead and work the first problem. To work this problem, look at just the first 2 parts of it, the first 2 terms. Negative times negative is positive. 4 times 3 is 12. Now we're going to look at the 12 and the negative 2. Positive times negative is negative. 2 times 12 is 24. So that's our solution. Here's the second problem. Again, I'm going to work this in order from left to right because it's all multiplication. In order of operations, say multiplication and division works left to right. So negative times negative is positive. 9 times a is 9a. I'm going to work these two. 9a times a negative a. Positive times negative is negative. We have 9aa, which is a squared. Multiply in the next a. Negative times negative is positive. I have a squared times a. Well, that would be a cubed. So I have 9a cubed. Then I'm multiplying in the b. Positive times positive is positive. 9 times a cubed times b is 9 times a cubed times b. It's okay if you need to slow that down and run through that again. These are the last 2 problems I ask you to write down. The first one is 0 divided by 10. If I have nothing and it's divided into 10 parts, I still have nothing. The second one is 10 divided into 0. Well, if I have 10 of anything, I can't divide it into 0 parts because then I would have, you have to have at least 1 part. So this one is undefined. You cannot divide by 0. Friends, do not let friends divide by 0. So anything divided by 0 is undefined. Here's a nice example. This one you do not have to write down. A skydiver's elevation changes by negative 3,600 feet in 4 minutes after the parachute opens. What is the average change in the skydiver's elevation? Well, think about this. Your skydiver is dropping, so you know your change is going to be a negative change. And as you can see, negative divided by positive is negative. And then we look at 4 into 3,600. Well, 4 goes into 36 9 times. And it'll be 900. So your answer is negative 900. This slide is a review of square roots. When looking for the square root of a number, let's say 9, because 9 is a perfect square, we think of what number can be multiplied by itself to get 9. So the square root of 9 can equal 3, but the square root of 9 can also equal negative 3. So often you say the square root of 9 is equal to plus or minus 3. Nine was a perfect square because you knew 3 times 3, or negative 3 times negative 3 equaled 9. 64 is another perfect square. 64 is a perfect square because 8 times 8 equals 64, and negative 8 times negative 8 also equals 64. So the square root of 64 is equal to plus or minus 8. Now sometimes you'll see it signified like this. In this case, they want you to use the negative value, so your answer would be -8. Otherwise, you want to assume they want the positive and negative value of it. They don't state, they want you need to consider both values. Place your definition in your notes. This should be the second required thing in your notes. Inverse property of multiplication. Here's your definition. For every non-zero real number a, there is a multiplicative inverse 1 over a, such that a multiplied by its multiplicative inverse is going to equal 1. Note, this is also called a reciprocal. This is problem number 3. I would like you to pause this and get as far as you can on this problem, and then start the video and look at the answer. Hopefully you paused the video and got as far as you can. As you can see, I took the -3/4 and I put it in for the x, -2/3 and put it in for the y value. Now this fraction bar is just a division sign. So I rewrote the problem over here as 3/4 divided by, that's where the fraction bar was, -2/3. And of course the 3/4 is negative as well. Now when you divide by fractions, you need to multiply by the reciprocal. I know in 6th and 7th grade we use skip, flip, multiply, and KFC, but the correct terminology is multiply by the reciprocal. So we use the reciprocal of the second value. Multiplying fractions, you multiply straight across, so -3 times -3 is a +9, 4 times 2 is 8, and then you can see I reduced and made it into a mixed number. This would be problem number 4 in your notes. I want you to try this problem. Again, pause the video, get as far as you can, and then restart the video and finish the problem with me. As you can see here when I set up the problem, when I replaced a variable with its value, I used parentheses. And I did it each time. Now for this first step, I use my order of operations. Parentheses first, where there's really nothing to do in the parentheses. Exponents, there were no exponents. So we have multiplication, division, and we work that left to right like we read. So I'm going to start with the first part. I did this division sign, and that became positive here. Positive divided by negative is negative. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Then I went to the next part, and this was my second term of multiplication. 2 times 6 is 12. And then my third, I have a division problem here, and it's time to do that next. I couldn't do that until I did this part because this was on the left side before the division. So I need to do that next. As you can see here, I have a +12 divided by a -1. Positive divided by negative is negative. 12 divided by 1 is 12. So now my problem becomes -5, -12, or -5 minus 12. Well, if I owe 5 and I owe 12, I'm going to owe 17.